To quote the great Legolas, or specifically Orlando Bloom, "I don't do a film unless it has a sword in it." Spoken like a true sage. With those wisdomful words of wisdom ringing in our ears, we start today's video. Here we'll list our top 10 fight scenes, historical and fantasy, covering largely film but a little bit of TV as well. One of the corridor team is a regular sword fighter and practices HEMA, historical European martial arts, so we'll throw in a bit of light critique for you. If you'd like to learn more about HEMA, we'll pop a link in the description below. Oh, and spoiler alert. A quick honourable mention goes to Titus Pullo in HBO's Rome, on your screen now. Right now. Thrown into a gladiatorial arena to face certain death, Pullo fights his way through a number of opponents to exhaustion, and what looks like a grisly end at the hands of a particularly lofty gladiator. There's such raw emotion throughout this scene, it's a little bit heartbreaking. Pullo's cries for his former legion are particularly impactful. His rescue at the hands of Lucius Vorenus, though, is an uplifting end to a very bloody fight. Diving into our first offering, we have The Witcher, the fantasy drama starring Henry Cavill, based on the book series by Andrzej Sapkowski. In this scene, Cavill's Geralt is accosted in the town of Blaviken by a group of men loyal to Renfri, a princess at the centre of this episode's plot. Incidentally, the fight between Geralt and Renfri later in the episode, also great. Whilst not particularly authentic, this fight is fun to watch and very stylish. The fight is over pretty quickly, but it starts brutal, ends brutal, and despite the presence of some unnecessary spinning and a frankly baffling backhanded grip, the choreography successfully makes Henry Cavill look very cool with a sword in his hand. Next up, we head to the Scottish Highlands and the story of Rob Roy. Played by Liam Neeson, this scene finds the eponymous Rob Roy up against his arch-nemesis, Archibald Cunningham, played by a spectacular Tim Roth, in a final duel to the death. From the beginning, this duel is fought at a more realistic tempo, stalking each other, looking for an opening, where to gain an advantage. They engage at a good distance with minimal unnecessary spinning and jazzy behind the back moves. It's a good example of how some top quality character acting really adds to the enjoyment of the movie action. Tim Roth is all pomp and menace and punchable face, and it's a thrill to watch. Archibald Cunningham, a strong contender for a greatest movie villain of all time. Such a contemptible arsehole. Third in our list is Conan the Barbarian's Battle of the Mounds. The build-up to this fight is brilliant. Conan recites a prayer to Crom, which can be heard as the enemy approaches, accompanied by an impactful score. Resourceful is the word for this fight. Conan and his allies make great use of their surroundings, setting traps and distractions. A strategically placed helmet towards the end of the fight is particularly clever, and bonus point for no unnecessary spinning. No fantasy list is complete without The Lord of the Rings. It's a big trilogy and there are a lot of amazing fights, but for us the standout is the fight between Aragorn and the imposing orc Lurtz at the end of Fellowship of the Ring. Between them, brute strength meets masterful swordsmanship. It's a brief scrap, but still manages to squeeze in some very entertaining moments. A nifty dagger deflection, Aragorn pinned to a tree by Lurtz's shield, and a nice tidy decapitation to round things off. There's a point at the beginning of the fight where Aragorn takes quite a nasty knock to the head via a tree trunk. Viggo Mortensen plays dazed very well, and Lurtz temporarily gains the upper hand. It's a cool detail and just goes to show what a badass Aragorn is. Anyone else will be concussed and laid up for a week. In at number 5 we have a delightful fight between the dread pirate Roberts and Inigo Montoya in The Princess Bride. Not only does Montoya wait for his opponent to climb up a cliff to the location of their fight, he also gives him a hand up and a chance to have a sit down to recover before beginning their duel. As with the remainder of the movie, the dialogue is sublime here and adds an extra layer. In fact, considering it's a fight to the death, there's a lot of conversation. There are some great references to genuine sword masters throughout. Rocco Bonetti, Camillo Agrippa, and Rodolfo Capoferro. And the accompanying music almost becomes a third contender in the battle. Overall, some unnecessary spinning and a pretty silly fight. They don't seem to be trying to hit each other half the time, but incredibly fun all the same. Moving from light and fun to intense and heavy, we have Troy, and the much anticipated fight between Brad Pitt's Achilles and Eric Bana's Hector following the death of Achilles' cousin. If you can get past Hector's daft armour, this is a cool fight. What it lacks in authenticity, it makes up for in cinematic style. When Achilles tries his winning move from a previous fight, Hector knocks it away with ease. Very cool, and a nod to quite how tough an opponent he is. Unnecessary spinning, not so cool. Why the spinning? Still, sun, sea, and a deadly battle beyond the city walls, all very cool. Next we have Ridley Scott's Gladiator. Now this was a tough one. There are so many great fight scenes in this movie, but ultimately we went for the scene that the whole movie builds up to, the final fight between Maximus and Commodus in the arena. This scene contains some juicy character moments. Commodus at peak dick move, as if we didn't already know, having stabbed Maximus moments before. Quintus at last abandoning self-preservation and allowing Maximus a momentary reprieve mid-battle. And for our hero, Maximus finally gets to see his beloved family again. The fight itself is scrappy, fast-paced, and the close-quarters switch from swords to dagger and fisticuffs puts the viewer right there in the centre of the encounter. You can really hear the moment Maximus delivers the fatal blow to Commodus in all its intimate blade-to-flesh glory. Some mad sound effects there. On a personal note, I'm a huge fan of Hans Zimmer's work, which makes Gladiator an absolute joy for me. His music adds so much to this scene and movie. We follow with another tricky beast, Game of Thrones, so many good fights, so short a list. The long-awaited fight between brothers the Hound and the Mountain, Sandor and Gregor Clegane, in the final season takes top position though. The inevitability of this fight was dubbed Clegane Bowl, and it really does bowl you over. Sorry. It doesn't disappoint is what I'm trying to get at. First off, this is a very brutal scene, as you'd expect. One of them is a golem, after all, doesn't exactly scream gentle fluffy kitten. You can really feel the hate in every heavy savage hit. The Hound is quite frankly at a huge disadvantage from the off. It gets in blows to the chest, to the head, but the Mountain clearly isn't a head undead. At a guess, I'd say the Hound's rugby tackle into the fiery depths of the Red Keep did the trick, but who knows? Don't know if this is in the books, but that Gregor gets the opportunity to repeat his eye-gouging signature move is a great moment. Not for his brother, obviously. For our penultimate scene, we have the duel between Lancelot and Arthur in Excalibur, complete with super duper shiny armour. Seriously, that is some committed polishing. This scene is full of emotion, several weapon changes, Morningstar, sword, lance, and it's a pretty crude fight. Lots of movement from horse to ground to tree trunk. There are very few instances of unnecessary spinning. Perhaps only one slight spin, and whilst their weapons and armour are about 1,000 years off, they do look very nice. And finally we have Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves. Yet another movie with some great fights, but the final standoff between Robin Hood and the Sheriff of Nottingham is absolute peak. The Sheriff is such an awesome, mad villain, played to perfection by Alan Rickman. He's all big swings, dramatic lunges, facial expressions. It's a great scene to watch. There's some brilliant use of surroundings, statues going over, furniture being chopped in half, thrown around, a candlestick to the chest. There's a lot going on in a short space of time, but it really works. When Robin's sword is broken by one of the sheriff's blows, it feels a bit daft. It's possible he was fighting with a flawed sword, and throwing it back at the sheriff is a hilarious moment, so we can say it's fine, and at least it wasn't unnecessary spinning. And there we conclude. Are you more a Men in Tights fan? Do you agree that The Black Knight just needed a second wind and it was indeed just a flesh wound. As always, let us know your thoughts in the comments and have fun storming the castle. Thanks very much for listening. If you'd like to contact us or check out what we've been up to, you can find us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. If you enjoyed the video today, please do like it, subscribe to the channel, and ding the bell to receive notifications about new videos. See you in the next one.